I know. I hate flip flops, and I don't have any good shoes that I can wear with shorts. So I like barefoot. Um, Humans have evolved to be barefoot, not in shoes. So anyway, so don't eat anything up you drop up here. That's all I can say. Okay. What's the difference of being barefoot versus flops? It's the same. I was barefoot in stats last year, and they all flipped out. Dude, you're not wearing shoes in stats. Like, am I drop numbers on my toes or something? Whatever. Okay. It's refreshing? Whatever. Okay, I need to let the fungus air out anyway. Okay. Why do I keep recording when I do stuff like that? Okay. So, but I just want to kind of review back. We're halfway through this class, okay? And at this point of the class, we have studied, the first half of the class was the whole science aspect of psychology, okay? So the first part, the whole first half of the class, we talk about things that are scientifically testable and provable. Now we start talking about things that are applied. How can we use the stuff that we learned the first half of the semester to apply it to new situations? So when we go through, as we're going through this stuff, this is why I use a comprehensive final for this class, is because you need to know the stuff at the beginning of the semester in order to understand the stuff now. And it's to me, this gets more and more fascinating. Every time I hear the stuff on the radio, just driving in this morning, they were talking about, some guy on the radio was talking about, he wrote a book called Love Your Enemies. And that don't morally judge people that you disagree with. Disagree with their facts, but don't morally disagree with them. And I'm like, wow, that's deep, man. And after studying this psychology stuff for the last 20 plus years, I get it. But a lot of people don't get it. Because why do you get mad at someone who disagrees with you? Yeah, because their thoughts don't match your thoughts, so therefore your mind automatically says, you're stupid. Right? When someone doesn't agree with you or someone says something that goes against your, quote, morals, unquote, you assume that they're wrong. Because obviously you're right, because you think that way. Yeah. Okay, so now, I'm going to get rid of there, stupid, because it's really not the point of why I put that up there. Oh. Okay. Haha, you can't do that with your notes unless using a pencil. Okay. So, the purpose, what's the whole purpose of that first chapter, studying the mind? Why do we study the mind? Wow. It's not, the mind is not the study of behavior. Learning is the study of behavior. Mind is perspective. The first chapter, and we kept showing the kids trying to figure out what someone else would be thinking, is you're looking at putting yourself into other people's minds. It's perspective. I'm going to write another word up here, and one more. There are strong cause and effect relationships in the world. What do humans try and do? Well, I was snowboarding this weekend. I skied the first day and then I snowboarded the rest of the time because my opinion now, snowboarding is more fun than skiing. I just figured out it's a lot easier to hurt yourself skiing than it is to hurt yourself snowboarding. Okay? So, when you're trying to learn a new sport that potentially involves death and dismemberment, do you need to figure out the cause and effect relationships of things? Like my daughter's learning how to drive. We bought a car for the family. It's not her car, but she thinks it's her car. Because now we have 3 cars in the Weinert house. And because the Weinert house has 3 cars, she's going to be responsible for driving herself around at the end of the month if she passes her driving test. So, do we need to pay attention to cause and effect relationships? Like what? Or if you run out of gas, or, yeah. Okay, not to bring out something sore. Okay, but, yeah, if you stop too late. The car we got is, we got a Nissan Rogue, and it's got the auto assist braking. My father-in-law goes, "Did you try it out?" I'm like, "No." How does it work? If you're about to run into something, it jams on the brakes for you. So when she's busy Snapchatting her stupid boyfriend while driving, we have the app that we can rat her out if she's doing it. But if she's not paying attention, she's my kid, so paying attention is 50-50, that the car will automatically stop for her. I think that's not necessarily a good idea. It'll keep her safer, but she's missed a few homeless folks in our neighborhood pretty well, so they amble across the street occasionally. And it's every so often, I've had to yell at her once or twice, "Stop!" "Well, he shouldn't be crossing here." "You should stop anyway." Okay. Okay. But she's getting really good at the cause and effect relationships of driving. Because you have to pay attention to lots of things. And the more you practice, what happens to the number of things you have to pay attention to? Say it louder. Somebody said it up here. Oh, come on, get this. You think less and you pay attention to less, therefore you drive better. We drove in a big snowstorm. We drove in Wednesday night, and I don't want to stop and put chains on. Ugh, it's all messy and cold and raining and wet, and so I just let the minivan roll with no chains. The snow was like up to the floorboards of the van, and we're like, my wife's like, "Shouldn't we stop and put on chains?" I'm like, "Let it run!" The poor van's traction control is going, "Help me!" Like lights flashing everywhere. Even got the anti-lock brakes to go on twice. Oh yeah. It's the first time I've ever felt the anti-lock brakes in the van. Good job, van. It's keeping us safe. Anyway, but I grew up driving in the snow. Do I understand the cause and effect relationships of driving in the snow? Yes. How come there's a bunch of cars slid off the road? Because it's slippery, and if you don't understand the cause and effect relationships of driving in the snow, you're more likely to crash. My favorite one's people pass me when I'm going 20 miles an hour. Then you watch them go around the next corner. I'm like, "Oh, I'm going 20. Moving on. Okay. It was a good time. Okay, so this idea of cause and effect. Okay, so your job is to pay attention to everything going on around the world, look at it from 17 different perspectives, and understand the reality of the situation. How well do you think you do? Pretty damn amazing, actually. We can navigate the world. Has anybody ever seen someone walking and texting on their phone, and then all of a sudden there's a hole, and they go, "What? How do they do that?" I like the inexperienced walking texters. Usually old people. What do? Run into stuff. My favorite thing is back when phones were new was I'd get in front of someone and start walking slower. And they'd slowly, and then I'd speed up, and they'd be walking. You don't do that? Fine. You young people, though, navigate much better, because has the phone become a part of your belt? Yes, it's dangerous, though, because cars move faster than pedestrians. So when you're driving and you're playing with your phone, how much does it slow down your reaction time? Not a few seconds, that would be bad. 150 to 200 milliseconds, it slows your reaction time. That's not watching a video. We're doing that experiment right after this class in my stats class. Have students watch a video while doing a reaction time test. Because we've seen on the freeway driving home, there's a guy with his phone like this watching a TV show as he's driving down the 15. Good idea, right? We'll find out how much it slows down your reaction time. But just interacting with your phone not texting, but just interacting with it, slows you down 150 milliseconds. At 60 miles an hour, it's about 10 feet. Yeah, young people with lightning fast reaction times, what do they say? Yeah, I got this. And it turns out young people are not as impaired playing with their phones as old people are impaired playing with their phones. We did that experiment a couple years ago. However, okay, getting back to the main point of this, is that when you see somebody texting or something on their phone, what do you say? Dude, stop it. You're irritating. I'm going to take a picture of you on your phone. And then you smash into the person in front of you trying to take a picture of the person who's on their phone. Watching video. Yeah. Okay. So what's crazy about this is that every year that you get a little bit older, you pay attention to less, but understand more. Yeah, that's a thing called wisdom. As you get older, you gain wisdom. If Rosa were to take this class again 3 years later, it's so easy. Yeah, you would, definitely. It's not that she's gotten any smarter. What has she learned? You're the same smartness as were before. What do you think you learn as you go through college? How to pay attention to the important things. Not get distracted by my bare feet. Okay, sorry. Now, I do have a very good prehensile toe, so I have a big gap so I can grab stuff and carry things around. Very important for orangutan. Okay, moving on. So I'm going to draw this stupid shape up here. That's not a triangle. It's a very nice triangle though, but oops. Okay, what is this shape? Well, let me move the center line. Oh well. Okay, what is it? It's also called a what does the center represent? Come on. The average. Average observation. We call it the mean in data. Okay? This is the highest frequency. This is the highest frequency occurring thing. So if you're in your brain, you think of a car. Everybody think of a car in your head. What car did you think of? Mercedes. I think of our little Nissan Rogue that we just got for my daughter. Because it's new, I drove it to school today, and therefore that's the one that's the highest frequency. When we were looking at all the stupid little cars that we could afford to buy my stupid daughter, third family car, whatever. But whenever we start looking at a car, we realize how many little Nissan Rogues are on the road right now. We looked at Sentras and Honda Fits and all these little cars. We got the Rogue because it's higher up. But you realize as soon as you start thinking about it, what happens? You see it more often because it changes our observation set. So I'm going to write this word down here because this is really important for this next section. So in the application of psychology, we start to pay attention to these things called observation sets. These observation sets are what you have experienced. So you're learning. But I'm going to kind of shift back a little bit because do your thoughts change your observation sets? Okay, so there's something called priming. We've done this a couple times to you in the past. The bicycle crash. If I get you angry about something and then give you some information, you'll remember it differently. If I make you feel fuzzy about something and give you an observation, you will feel differently about it. Anybody see the movie Mel Gibson? I almost said Mel Brooks. That would be actually funnier. Anyway, Mel Gibson made called The Passion. I didn't watch it. It's too gross. But basically, if you were a Christian and watched it, you became better Christian-y. if you were Jewish and watched it, you didn't like them anymore. Why? Well, yes, but they portrayed the Jews as betraying Jesus in the movie. But what's interesting is that if people had, if you were feeling one way, the movie was extremely gross and violent. There's a part where somebody's getting whipped, okay? And the way that they made the sound effects is they took a dead pig with the whip and kept whipping the dead pig with the whip. So what sound did they get? The real sound of someone getting whipped with this thing. And why would they add that real sound effect in there? But because what does it do to the observation set that you have about the event? You feel it. It makes it more, quote, real. Because it is real. That's like we were watching a stupid TV show, or my wife was watching it. I got bored with it every 5 minutes and kept walking by. She hates it that I can spend about 3 minutes watching a TV show and know more about what's going on than she does. How do you know that? No, you're going to do that and this and that. Why? It's TV, prescriptive. Anyway, so it's about some like high school that wants to put on a play that's too violent, and then the school makes them stop it, but they do it anyway. You know what I'm talking about? And there's a scene where there's two guys that kiss, and there's a scene where the boyfriend beats up the girl, and he actually beats her up on stage. Somebody got a memory? And it's like the teacher is like the ASB teacher, and he's like in charge of the play, and then he gets fired because of the play, and the school board, it's like some rural Texas place, and they do this really avant-garde thing, and the son who kisses the other guy is actually really gay and didn't tell his parents to help the show. It's really complicated. Okay. I could Google it, but I'm not going to. Okay. Okay, so now, anyway, so the object of the next part of this class is talking to you about your personal observation sets. What do you see when you look at the world? So we're going to give you some language in which to describe what you see, and then we're going to start explaining, looking out amongst ourselves and looking out around the news and everything else that you see, where you can start seeing priming observation sets. You can start seeing how people are manipulating your consciousness by paying attention to different things, by focusing on different things. So let me go here. We're going to start Social Psychology 101. Now, when I was in graduate school, I took a couple of social psych classes, and I said, this is so stupid. There's no science. I'm a behavioral neuroscience guy. Social psychology is fluffy. Ugh. But it works. Damn it. Okay, so I'm going to give you some words so we can understand social psychology. Number one. Called attribution theory. That's it. Number one is called attribution theory. So, can someone tell me what the word attribution means? When you say someone's got these attributes. Okay, so I'm going to write the word trait up here. That's a good one. Good. Big heart. Oh, take. Oh, perfect. Okay, sorry. Okay, so when you talk about somebody's attribution, in psychology, do we know a person's characteristics or all the parts of a person, or do we know their personality traits? No. How do you really get to know somebody? You don't talk to them, you listen to them. I know it's the same thing, but I just have to say it every time. Yeah, every time. Okay, so attribution theory are assumptions. They're assumptions of people's traits, characteristics, or the elements of themselves based on observation. This is attribution theory. So, right before class, we were talking about is someone that you're attracted to really the opposite of yourself, or are they more similar to yourself? They're not opposite of you. They're similar to you. Okay, so it turns out that relationships that last a long time, people have very similar attributes. Can you get distracted by shiny objects occasionally? Yes. Someone walks by and your brain goes, that one. But what happens when you get to talk to them? There's a really great Friends episode, which I thought about trying to dig up the clip for, where Phoebe's attracted to this she's supposed to meet her dream person, and this guy walks in, and she thinks it's him, and they start dating, and he finds out he writes erotica for children. Anybody remember that episode? And he's like, this turns out to be this epic, creepy guy. And then she leaves the restaurant in a huff and meets the guy that she was dating for the last 3 seasons or whatever. Piano guy. Okay. Anyway, do not watch TV show Friends. Get on it. Hey, Friends. Nice work. Okay. These guys are friends. Sure not. I can't see what the rest. No name over his face. Okay. So now, assuming some sort of alien reference. What's the reference? Oh, it is PETA? Okay. Well, I didn't say PETA. I didn't see the PETA chart. Okay. I was the only person in our research lab that had a PETA t-shirt. Okay, sorry. Okay. So, the problem with attribution theories, whenever you're making assumptions based on observations, remember the babies with the squeaky ball experiment. Do we make lots of observations, or do we use good data or noisy data? What does the word noisy data mean? Yeah, noisy data means, I'm going to write stuff going on. I like that. So I'm going to draw noisy data for you. It's very satisfying when it does that, by the way. Okay. Here's my observation. This is what we call noisy data. We also call it plato-kurtotic data. But what happens is this data right here, if I see this, anything that is remotely similar is about the same. You get data like this with 1 or 2 observations. So lots and lots of stuff going on, very noisy data. So if the only car you ever see is a Toyota Corolla, what do you think cars are? Toyota Corollas, because it's the only car that you're used to seeing. It's the only car that you see. We were watching a Grand Tour stupid guy car show on Amazon Prime. It's absolutely hilarious. They were driving along in Georgia. It's a part of Russia. And every single car is a Tatra, the Russian car. Like every single car. And they're driving in these like fancy, expensive supercars. And every other car is a Tatra. And they come in 4 colors. So why do their cars stand out so much? All the cars are the same, except their 4 cars. It's pretty funny. The same thing it goes if you go into downtown La Jolla. If we're driving our old minivan through downtown La Jolla, do people stop and look at you? Yes. Because everybody else has nice cars. No one else has beat up old Honda minivans. I love my beat up old Honda minivan. Anyway, so now, the second part is how do we get good data? How do I get good data to make good observations? Not necessarily, because can you focus on the wrong one thing? Yeah. I'm going to write this word up here, large N, or lots of degrees of freedom if we're taking stats next class. Okay, but large N, lots of samples. I didn't say samples, but whatever. All right. Okay, so now, we have a problem. Do humans like to jump to conclusions? Yes. Why do we like to jump to conclusions? That's what your mind is for. The reason you have a mind is to jump to conclusions. Okay? The reason you have a mind is to jump to conclusions. Okay? And so, okay, now, so it's fun knowing me. Okay, so now, if we jump to conclusions about, let's say, chipper trapping in class, okay? So what if something very serious is going on that they need to talk about? But I just go, stop it. Yeah. Right? Could I make a mistake? Yes. Why? Ooh, this is even better. When someone's phone goes off in class. Some faculty get really upset and how rude of you having a phone in my class. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Anybody have a anti-phone teacher? Okay, Dr. McGrevy, who is retired, would just blow a gasket and turn red. Okay, and I'm like, well, if your phone goes off in class, is it important? Yeah, or, hi, we'd like to talk to you about your health care. Oh, really? So is it a big deal if somebody's phone goes off in class? Not really. Because most young people, guess what you do? Well, it's not even that, but you ignore everybody else's phone use. It's my generation that gets irritated with it. Actually, my generation's okay. The next generation older than me is worse. Okay? But because if you're my generation, if you're old and you're talking on the phone or using your phone during class, okay, I assume that that's more important than what I'm doing up here. When you're using your phone, when you're talking with your friends, what do you assume? It's nothing. Because of the number of observations that we've made. Okay, so what we start to do is we start to make what's called errors. This starts becoming important in the rest of our world here. You see someone speeding on the freeway. Why? Okay, so is it situational? Or, I don't like cross the O. Or dispositional? I'm really struggling today. Give me a minute. You see someone driving fast. Is it situational or dispositional? Situational would mean that they're late for something. What would dispositional be? So, or my father-in-law always says, those people are so stupid. And, you know, as we're coming, we had the cruise control set. We made it from Mammoth to San Diego in 6 hours and 15 minutes. Cruise control, that's 2 stops, too. Cruise control set just at 80 the entire way, 85 when we hit the 15. And people were just going boom past us in a couple places. And my favorite is when the car goes zooming past you that is like a 1992 Nissan Altima. that you know that those tires haven't been rotated enough and you're just waiting for that thing to just... Okay, but why do you say that person's a jerk or that person's stupid? But what if they're rushing? My friend Brian that passed away, his wife Nancy, she was pregnant with her second son, and they lived up in Crest at the time, and they had to make it from Crest to Zion Hospital, not Alvarado, but for Kaiser Hospital in Zion, at like 9 o'clock in the morning when she went into labor. Is that an easy drive? No. I'm pretty sure they drove the Honda Civic, but in my brain, they had this red Suzuki Samurai at the time, so in my head, that's the car they were driving. Anybody know what a Suzuki Samurai is? It's the worst car ever made. Anyway, yeah, they killed one of the test drivers by jamming on the brakes, and it endoed. And they're doing the safety test. Anyway, so Brian her husband was driving at breakneck speed, in my head, the Suzuki, probably in the Honda Civic, okay? Zigzagging in and out of traffic, honking, going on the shoulder, trying to get... They made it to the hospital. Kenny was born a couple minutes outside of the elevator. Good job, Nancy. Okay, but when people saw them, what was the reason they were speeding? Situational. He was being extremely daring and brave so that he could not deliver a baby in a car. And the same... But why were people trying to cut him off and people flipping him off and honking at him and stuff? They thought he was just being a jerk. When someone does something scary, you assume, oh, like if someone, robs a house, you say, oh, that person's a bad person, they're criminal. But what if there's a reason for them breaking into the house where they needed to get some money for something that was better than the person that had the stuff to begin with? So you start realizing that, do you know the real truth in the world? No. Why don't you know the real truth in the world? It's not that we don't want to. It's really funny that humans really do like to hear backstories. We really are interested in why you are behaving the way you are, but can we know that by someone going zoom by on the freeway? No, so what do? Well, use a self-assumption. So when you start using this self-assumption, you start making attributions based on what would you be doing in that situation? What would you be doing? So for example, if you were driving too fast, why would you be driving too fast? I gotta pee. Or I'm late. The fastest I ever went on the freeway when I first got my Mini Cooper is my son had the croup. And he couldn't breathe. And so my wife took him to the doctor because he was sputtering and coughing. And she goes, they're admitting him to the hospital. You need to get down here right now. Like, woohoo! I made it from our house by San Diego State to Zion Hospital in 4 minutes. It was awesome. I hit 115 coming down the freeway. No problem. Nice work. In the car you have now? Okay, yeah, I was going to say, the car you have now tip over. Okay, so, but was I being stupid and reckless? No, because I wanted to get to the hospital because all of a sudden they're admitting him to his oxygen levels are at 80 something, and they panicked and put him in the oxygen tank. No, because I had purpose and reason. See how I defended myself? Because I make an assumption, yes, it was reckless and stupid, but I defend myself because I make the situation based on the fact that I'm looking at the situation from my own perspective. Question is that? I'm a skilled driver. Yeah, that's right. Okay. But again, you can defend yourself, and it's actually called a self-serving bias. And this is actually what's really fun. If you have close friends and a close partner, they see through your self-serving bias all the time. I mean, it's the same thing as like I've been eating way too many carbs over this holiday season in the wintertime. And my kid, my wonderful little son goes, Dad, you're going to die of diabetes. And I'm holding a biscuit. But it's a biscuit. Put it down. A couple minutes later, come back looking at it. Walk it away. Come back later, look at it. And my son pokes his head around the corner. You still want it, don't you? Shut up. Okay. But but you have the self-serving bias because why do you want to protect yourself? You do something stupid, but that's the same one. Have anybody been getting these, the one ring ones, and you try to call them back, and it's like, yeah, so I Googled it, and it's a one ring, it's like from Barbados or Tacos Islands or something, and if you call it back, it's like some private line, which is like a $20 phone call. That's what it said. I Googled it, and that's what it said, so don't call back the one call. Yeah, the one ring, because they're waiting for you to call them back, and then they charge a ridiculous amount for the phone call back. It comes anywhere from the Bahamas or Barbados. This one's from Tacos and Tacos and something. Robo. Because it's like when you call like a pay service, they automatically charge the phone bill that. Yeah. That's just I Googled it yesterday because I got like 4 or 5 of those, and I'm like, what's up with that? They don't even, just one ring and then it shuts up. Like I just missed the call. This one came from restricted. It's really hard to call back. Anyway, good scam. Okay, sorry. So going back, if you're driving like an idiot, do I have a reason? Yeah, my son's in the hospital. What if I'm driving like an idiot because it's fun to drive like an idiot? Yeah, but then you have to realize that you are being a jerk and you are being stupid. But why do we have this self-serving bias? Because we're looking at things from our own perspective. Now, this is the best one. This is one you start becoming an asshole for taking this class. Because you can start using this next one. It's called the fundamental attribution error. It's called the fundamental attribution error. You assume it's dispositional. So this is what they were talking about on the radio this morning. You assume that other people's behavior is dispositional. When somebody says something, you assume that they said it with purpose and intent. Now, sadly for me, as I talk in front of people a lot, I say stupid things. Some people take a stupid little comment that I make in the wrong way? How? Well, this is a really simple one that's very dangerous. Let me put this up here, Microsoft Word document. Okay, so what if I meant to type that, but I accidentally typed this instead? Oh, it doesn't. I just want the winky. There it is. As opposed to a smiley face. This one, not that one, that one. Is there a difference between these two emoticons? One gets this one back. That's my favorite one. Okay. No, okay, so this is a very simple, and this is a very dangerous thing for people putting smiley faces at the end of sentences. Luckily, you have emoticons in your world now. But what's the difference between the winky face versus the regular smiley face? Yeah, immediately becomes dark and creepy if I put the winky face on there. Hey, come see my office. Okay? I just dyed my hair. Okay, so the object of this is that depending on who says that, does it change the way you perceive that sentence? Yes. And that's why a lot of with the whole Me Too movement showing up, it's been a great thing because a lot of guys with power are taking advantage of young women. Why? Because they can. And have they been allowed to? Well, not really, because is it still wrong? Say yes, please. Okay, thank you. No. Anyway, but because people have allowed it, what was the latest one? There was a latest one where this gentleman, I forget what job he was supposed to get in politics, but it was one of the Hollywood guys. He basically had this 20-year-old actress. He had an apartment for her, and she was at his service whenever he needed servicing. And basically, she was dating him, and he implied that he would get her roles in movies, and it was a willing, consensual relationship. Except he was married, and besides that part of it. But so is she playing the game as well as him? Yeah. And so he stepped down from whatever studio he was in charge of because of... It's not sexual harassment because it's inappropriate behavior. It wasn't sexual harassment because sexual harassment would be someone pushing themselves onto someone else in order to get what they want. So technically, she was using him to get what she wants. But what's he doing? Using her, but also, he was also married, which is, you're not supposed to do that. But in a lot of countries, a lot of young ladies will find these older, rich business people. There's a really cool documentary about this from Africa, where a lot of these young women will get their college paid for. They get an apartment in the city, they get their college paid for, and they just have to be at the apartment whenever the gentleman from out of town comes into town. And they provide themselves for him while he's there, and then they leave, and then they get to go on to their normal lives. And the problem is that a lot of these rich business people will have women set up in different areas, so whenever they visit, they have a person, and they just pay the rent of these apartments so the person can live there and go to school for free. And it's a mutual arrangement-ish. Anybody know the problem with that? Aside from it's creepy? Is it a win-win for everybody? Well, it turns out that a lot of the young women, this is what the documentary was about, a lot of the young women would have their own boyfriends. And a lot of these, and so if one of the ways that you spread AIDS is multiple sex partners, not simultaneously at the same time, but in short periods of time with multiple sex partners. And so what would happen is that a lot of these young women would be sleeping with this gentleman who had multiple sex partners, and each one of his people that he'd had sex with also had another sex partner. And so what happened was it started to increase the risk of AIDS amongst these groups. Because does the gentleman want to use protection and stuff when he has his woman kept for him? No. So it's a really interesting situation. And depending on how you look and view the situation, you start assuming, well, these women are bad women for doing this. Or this guy is a real creep for doing it. But how do you know what the real story is? Well, you can. You have to sit down and spend a lot of time with the person in order to find out exactly what's going on. That's why with the way that media is now, anything happens, what can you do? You can voice your opinion about it. Just finding that my stats course is going to be distracted today by watching cat videos. Okay? And there's cats and cucumber video that everybody watch cats versus cucumbers. Yeah. Well, 4 or 5 down in the comment, there was a couple really disgusting comments that people had posted on this YouTube cat video. Why do people feel the need to do that? Fundamental attribution error. Well, why would you think that they're really nasty, vile people? Because they said vile, nasty things. So you assume that they're a vile, nasty person. What if they just have a funny sense of humor? Well, what makes something funny for one person but not to someone else? The perspective that you're saying. My cousins from Georgia, Scott, Gerald, and I wish I could remember the third one, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, they were from Rome, Georgia. Rome, Georgia is an extremely segregated part of Georgia. There was a railroad tracks that would go through Rome, and all the white people lived on the north side, and all the black people lived on the south side. And do you cross the tracks? No. And so they used to come up to Vermont, and Vermont is a a very neutral race country, or Vermont state, I should say. What is the ethnicity of Vermont? 89% white, 2% black, the rest other. Mostly mix of Native Americans. Okay, and so my cousins would come up from Georgia. Georgia's about 50-50, especially their town. They'd have all these racial jokes. We wouldn't get them. We don't think that's funny. We don't get it. And they would use racial slurs all the time. My brothers and I would look at them and be like, "You're stupid." But what is racism? Well, it's not necessarily discrimination. We can now put some other isms up there. Yeah, racism is where you are using different attributes based on the way that someone's race is. So how do we define what race is? We already defined what sex is, right? Or have we? We talked about gender. How do you decide if someone's male or female? So this is how we say it. It's your phenotype. How you express yourself. Miss Castor has phenotype female, but somewhere more phenotype male. She has a phenotype female genitalia, but the rest of her phenotype looks male. Okay, so phenotype is the way you express, the way that you show. Could you learn to dress? Could you dress more masculine or more feminine? Yeah, we're going to some stupid formal thing Saturday. Anyway, and I have to find my suit. I got 2 suits. Both of them are horribly out of style. I don't care. I think for the last 3 times we went to this event, I've worn the same exact thing because I don't care. My wife's like, "You need a new suit." I'm like, "No, I need a new bicycle." You have 8 bicycles. I've got 2 suits. Okay, but why when I dress up in my ultimate boy clothes, which is the formal suit, what if my wife were to wear the suit and I wear the dress? Girls can wear suits. But is it a guy's suit or is it a tailor-fit girl suit? Aha! Okay. But it's very attractive for the young lady to wear the suit coat. You know, at the end of the night, she's cold and she's wearing the coat. She looks good. But how does the guy, when he throws a little pashmina on? And, we knowing what a pashmina is. See, that's the problem. Okay. So, but do we expect different things from different phenotypes? Yes. And the same thing goes with racism. Racism is where you judge someone based on their phenotype. And what's really, we're doing this big training this semester on equity. Equity is about identifying racism. And it's really kind of interesting. It's kind of opened my eyes up to a lot of stupid crap that I've said over the years. Because are we all slightly racist? Yes. Why are we racist? Well, no, it doesn't mean that we're bad people, okay? But everybody, well, I'm just going to go back up here because I wrote it up here. Everybody makes judgments. Everybody makes attributions. But what's interesting is the more people of color that you hang out with, the more people of color that you're around, what happens to the judgment that you make? Well, you still judge. We all judge. You can't not judge. That's what our mind is for. But what do you base people's judgments on the more you're around lots of different races? They're actual traits. I'm going to write the word based on here. I know it's really annoying to me now. Sorry. Okay. But, don't know that one. Okay. So, because we were car shopping yesterday, I'm going to have like 1,000 people calling me. Because, salesman. We're talking about how to properly persuade people and how to properly sell a car. Anyway, so now, but it's so fun after studying social psych when you watch used car salesmen. Well, they follow the same protocol. They've read the same book, no matter what dealer you go to. It's fun. Anyway, so, okay, so, what basically, when you have, everybody makes judgments based on race, period. We all do. So what can you do about it? We're all slightly racist. Post something racist on Twitter? Oh, okay. That's the exact opposite of what I was thinking. Well, there's a lot of stuff on the, I can't figure out Twitter. Too much work. 28 line. Anyway, no. But I on Instagram a lot. I'll be looking at, I like cars and I like fishing, and because I like fishing stuff, a lot of rednecks like fishing stuff, and so I'll be scrolling through a fishing feed, and then there's some horrible racist post. Like, wow! That the joke, it's like we were on a stupid Clash Royale that I play with my son and my daughter's boyfriend. Anyway, it's hard to get over that. But this stupid little game. Okay, there's a little chat feed. Ooh, I got 10 visits. Okay, so there's a little chat feed that goes through. Okay, and as we're going through the chat feed, this one guy wants to be promoted to something, and the guy that's in charge of our clan goes, well, you can't till you do this and that. And he goes, you guys are a bunch of N-words. And then left. And I'm like, well, that escalated quickly. I'm like, so people in the real world, because I don't live in the real world. Where do I live? My own little academia bubble. But people in the real world throw racial slurs around. Hold on. Hello?
Steve?
Yes.
Hi, it's Tanya calling from Pacific Honda. How are you?
I'm actually teaching a class right now. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Okay.
You're free?
Yeah.
Okay,
Bye. She's hip. She pulled that off really well. Yeah, she was the finance person that did our class. So, okay. I like it when people are hip. That's good. Okay. So, okay. Getting back. So, when you are, okay, so going back, so why, if I live in my little academic bubble, do I realize how much racism there is outside of my little academic bubble? No. And that's one of the things that we were talking about in our little equity training, is that there's lots of things that we all do, and then it all comes down to attribution theory. That we start making these attributions, and we're not even aware of the attributions that we're making. We're not even conscious of it. And so what we're going to do in the next probably 2 or 3 classes is we're going to go through different areas of social psych. And we're going to focus on racism as the main focus of what we're talking about. This works in lots of different ways. At the beginning of class, we were talking about what makes someone attractive. Well, when you look at someone that you find attractive, that you want to try and start date, what if you're making attribution errors about them? What if you're assuming that their behaviors are based on disposition? Well, what happens when you actually get to know them? If you're making assumptions of the way that they are, it changes. And so the same thing goes when you're looking at people of different ethnicities. And it's funny. For years we were told we're not supposed to talk about race. But is that actually a problem? Yeah, one of the benefits that Trump has done for our culture is brought up the topic of race again. Because it was weird, during Obama's administration, no one wanted to talk about race. But now everybody's talking about race again. And so a lot of the racial activists are like, I'm kind of glad that Trump is in the White House, because does he say things that are blatantly racist? Yes. When he refers to Haiti as a shithole country. We don't want refugees from there. We want white refugees. Ouch. But how come he just says it out loud? Yeah. Oh, she's okay. I know. You got to leave. He had to leave. He said it earlier, but it's fine. Okay. Situational attribution, not dispositional. He told me ahead of time. Okay. But when you hear people speak extremely racist comments, is it shocking? Depending on where you are and where you're from. And that's what's interesting is in this context, in the safety of our classroom, we can talk about race and we can talk about difference of ethnicity, because in this particular class we're going to be focusing on the social psych aspects of it. But in a sociology class, you could be talking about it in something different. Look at history. Is history filled with racism? Yeah, and depending on whose history you're reading, you hear a much better, much different perspective. Talk to any local Kumeyaay about how they feel about Cabrillo and Father Junipero. Who are those guys? Oh, come on. Father Junipero Sarah, Father Sarah, founded the missions. Oh. Anybody know why the Barona Indians are called the Barona Band of Mission Indians? But Sequan is not? I learned this last week. Barona Indians were all the ones that converted to Catholicism through the mission. And the Sequan were the ones that fought back. And the Viejas is somewhere in between. I didn't know that. But if you listen to Kumeyaay's version of history versus Spain's version of history, are they different? We liberated the savages and ruined their land and gave them smallpox and killed the ones that didn't convert. Good job, Spain. I did it in Mexico, too. What language do they speak in Mexico? Spanish. Yeah. They're actually much worse in Mexico than they were here. How did they get land in Mexico? Well, kill people. You get raped, and then you have the Spaniard's son, and then it's his land. Not cool. But how come when they tell history, they don't tell those kinds of stories? Depending who writes the history, depending on who writes the perspective. And I keep mentioning this, that psychology is pretty much the study of old white people. Because who were the founding fathers of psych? Old Western European white scientists. But, okay, so getting back to the big picture here, see, big picture. Okay. As we go through this, when you start trying to understand racism, what is the way to fix it? It's really simple. Mindfulness of these things. So we're going to be doing a bunch of little activities. One of the activities caused a bunch of students to feel very uncomfortable last year. If we're ever doing an activity that makes you feel very uncomfortable, what can you always do? Don't just leave. I mean, if you leave in a huff, it's funny, but no. So what we have is, when we do the activities, we have a little, I'm not up for this box. And you can go stand in the I'm not up for this box, and you don't get judged. And so a couple of them ones we do outside, I draw on the sidewalk out there, and then we go walk around based on different attributes. And if you really don't feel comfortable answering or doing part of the survey, is it okay to say I really feel uncomfortable with this? Yes. And you should feel okay to say I feel uncomfortable with this. Because sometimes when we're talking about things, especially about racism and about personal things that we have had, if that happened to us or whatever else, sometimes you need to accept things inside yourself and not necessarily share it with everybody else. And so you never ever need to or have to share in class if you don't feel comfortable to. But why do we have to do some things that make you feel uncomfortable? It's not so you can better remember. Remember, this is the application of all the stuff that we've learned now. But why do you have to see things for yourself? Well, before you can change, you have to see. Not literally see, but before you can change, you have to be conscious of your own consciousness. I have a couple students that really are struggling in statistics, and their main reason is that they hate it. It's not because they're not good at it, it's because they fear it. So this is what I did in I subbed a class right before this one. That's my voice a little squeaky. I taught some students, I'm going to use this one, how to cast a fly rod. Okay? And so, anybody know the biggest problem with casting a fly rod? Side of the classroom? Fine. It's a paper clip. I'm not going to use a real fish hook. Okay. Okay, so this is what's called a tenkara rod. This is a really good backpacking fly rod. It's an old-fashioned Japanese way of fly fishing. Does I look like an old Japanese man? Or not? Okay. I can't grow that really long, cool beard that they grow. Okay. But, so, there's almost enough space in here to do this. But again, so what's the biggest, she did it perfectly right off the bat. What was she afraid of instantly about putting this out? Stepping on the fishing hook. Well, but see, that's the biggest problem. The biggest problem with learning how to do something is being afraid. I mean, so if I can do this in here, yeah. Okay, I can't, almost enough space in here. You realize how much space this goes. So it's funny how inside there's not really as much room as you think there is. Okay, and so, where are we going? Okay, sorry. So, but, well, fly fishing is extremely relaxing. And so, but the idea is that if you have, how come I'm able to play with the yo-yo and jump on my bike in here, and did I jump on my bike in this class? No, like you say, the same class. But I probably won't have these tomorrow in there. But try to cast, what am I doing back there? Is it drinking? Oh, I got it. Okay, now out the door. Okay, so the thing about this is that this is actually a young string tied at the end of it so that the students could see it to learn with a paper clip with a piece of string tied to it. It's not, no fish will ever fall for this one. Actually, I take it back. In the ocean, you could catch something with it. Fish in the ocean are pretty stupid. They just like, something's moving, and eat it. Anyway, but But one of the things that keeps people from becoming mindful is fear, being afraid. Okay, it's like when you first start the brain scanner on. What kept it from working? You were nervous. And his brain's all, ah! And then after a while, he was able to relax. Christina, one of my students in my physio class, goes, oh, I want to play with the brain scanner. And I'm like, cool. Oh, which box did I put that in? When I take the cap off, I always stick it in a pocket because this part of the fishing pole, if you can see it, it's really, really thin. It breaks really easily. And this thing cost about $6, and I really don't want to buy another one. Yeah, this was Amazon's best Chinese-made product. I ordered it, and it was like 6 months before it got here. But the reason I love this thing is that when we go out I can go mountain biking along some of the rivers and up in the June Lake area. And I just put this in your backpack. And I have another one. This big. Oops. This is stuck on something. Ah, careful. And this one is almost the same length. It's about 10 feet long. This one's about 12 feet long. And then you just plop it in your backpack. And then it's far enough to cast in the stream to catch fish there. Okay. So what are we afraid of talking about race? Okay, so this is something this is one of our main points that I wanted to make through today before we start getting into the details of it. We all have a self-serving bias. Most people say, "Well, I'm not racist." Why do they say that? Because we don't want to think that we're a jerk or stupid. And it's kind of refreshing sometimes when you find people that are openly racist because, well, it is, because at least they're openly racist. My buddy Hank, he's African American, he's a CHP officer, he goes, I prefer the guys with the swastika tattoos on their forehead as opposed to on their back under their shirt. Because they're openly racist. There's a gentleman we've seen at Costco with a little Hitler tattoo on one elbow, a swastika tattoo on his one shoulder, and it's a little smiley face with a little Hitler mustache. And yeah, but he's wearing it out in pride. Even though I don't agree with that ideology, he's not. They had a CHP officer that there's a rule you're not allowed to have tattoos, exposed tattoos in the CHP, and you're also not allowed to have any gang-affiliated tattoos or any racist tattoos when you're a police officer. And they found this one guy had the big Iron Cross eagle across his back. He was a neo-Nazi. And he had been in the CHP for 8 or 10 years. No one ever saw his tattoos. No one ever knew his affiliation. Why aren't you allowed to have those kind of affiliations being a peace officer? They bias the way that you view people. Because if you are a part of a racist organization, what happens is, what kind of observations are you making if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are extremely racist? You see more racist observations. If the only time that you ever interact with people of a different culture or ethnicity is in a negative way, how do you form attributions about people in that negative way? Or, I just said it, right? You start making attribution errors by forming those opinions prior to meeting people. Okay? So, I'm going to send home 2 or 3 videos for you to watch, and a pile of vocabulary words again. Okay? And the assignment's called How to End Racism. It's not going to be due for about probably 2 weeks, but I'm going to send it home now. Should you do it? Yes. I'm going to have you turn it in online so I don't lose the papers that you give me, and then Anna gets mad at me.